You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, you're listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, and it's emergency podcast time, which means I'm too ill or tired or quite possibly lazy to do a podcast today. And as I've said before, I wish to try and do a podcast every day in August. So this is only the second one, and hopefully it's well into the month before I use it. We shall see. So what I thought I would talk about today is TV that I like. And also TV that I haven't watched that I mean to get around to. So those of you who listen to this regularly or watch my live streams or read the website or whatever will know there are two particular TV shows that I quite like. I do like Doctor Who. I've always liked it since I was a kid. So when I was a kid, Tom Baker and Peter Davison and Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy were the Doctors. I think I watched 2 or 3 years of Tom Baker, and then I really enjoyed Peter Davison and Colin Baker, and then I'd started to lose I still watched it, but I started to lose interest a little bit during the Sylvester McCoy era, which in hindsight is not a reflection of him, because actually he's very good. But I think I was just maybe felt it was a bit childish for me at the time, whereas now that era I quite like. There's another TV show that I like called The Bill. It ran between 1984 and 2010. It's a UK police procedural series that for about 3 years of the run became a shit soap opera, but generally was a very good police procedural show. It just went a bit funny in the 2000s. Which is ultimately what got it cancelled. Those of you who have been following me for a while know that I am engaged in writing some short story crossover fan fiction of the two shows. I've written 4 so far, and I'm currently engaging my brain into trying to find a topic to write a story for September. Other TV shows that I really like. So there are things that I used to like. I used to quite like The Simpsons, but it was good for about 2 or 3 years, and then it's just I haven't watched it for years now. It's gone on far too long. The other thing I quite like, and I hate to admit this, I do quite like Star Trek. So I watched the original series when I was a kid. It was something my mother used to really like. I never hated it. I never loved it. I did, however, fall in love with Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, one of the reasons for that was it hit this country properly in 1989, which was the year that Doctor Who stopped. And I do think initially it was just a Doctor Who substitute because there was no Doctor Who in production. I like Star Trek The Next Generation, but as it continued, the series I really fell in love with was Deep Space Nine. I think it's the best bit of Star Trek out there. It's very, very gritty. It had good special effects for its time. It had much darker stories, and yeah, it's a really good show. I was never a huge fan of Star Trek Voyager, though. I think if I watched it now, I'd probably appreciate it more. And yeah, I actually really like some of the newer stuff. So I thought Picard had some great stuff in it. It wasn't good all the way through, but it had some great stuff in it. I feel similarly about Discovery. I haven't actually watched the most recent season yet because I've fallen out of love with it a bit. I thought the first 2 seasons were exceptionally strong, and then when it came into the future, I think it lost it a little bit. I like Lower Decks. I think that's a lot of fun. It's a cartoon sort of comedy Star Trek show, but has a lot of cameos from people on the main show, so I think that's a lot of fun. And I haven't really watched Strange New Worlds yet, which is sort of a spin-off of the second series of Discovery. I don't know why I haven't watched it. I'm sure I'll actually absolutely love it. I just haven't got round to it yet. Somebody on the chat room has just said the Orville. Yes, I absolutely love the Orville. It's basically Star Trek, if we're honest. It's basically Star Trek with a bit of a weird sense of humour, but I think the longer it went on, the humour reduced and its trekkiness increased. And yeah, I'm so pleased that there is going to be a 4th season. It's going to be a little while before it hits the screens. It doesn't even start pre-production until January. But yeah, it's well, I know, yeah, the chat room, somebody just said that was its intention for the Orville. Absolutely. And you can tell Seth MacFarlane is a massive Star Trek fan, because it is absolutely a homage to Star Trek The Next Generation. And yeah, I really like it. And I think it's actually managed to tell some really good stories. I mean, the whole Bortas's sunstroke daughter, that whole storyline was extremely. Obviously, it's an analogy of things that are happening now and the discussion about non-binary and transgender. And I thought it was such a good, well-told, interesting story, worthy of, things like the Next Generation episode, The Outcast, which has Riker falling in love with an androgynous, I'm not going to say human, but a person who's a member of an androgynous species, and they perceive choosing a gender as bad. So it was kind of a bit like that. So yeah, really, really good. God, I've talked for nearly 6 minutes just about Doctor Who and Star Trek. I'm trying to see what other shows I really like. So yes, I really like The Orville. I think I'm so glad there's more of that. I liked 24, although I thought it went on for too long. I thought the opening few series were really good, but then it got sillier and sillier and sillier and less unlikely. And the one where they exploded the nuke over, I think it was Los Angeles. Bit of a shame. Comedy shows that I could come back to this. Yeah, so that's a topic for a future emergency podcast. I'll talk about other shows that I like. That's I could probably record 2 or 3 right now, actually. So thank you for listening. Obviously, tomorrow will hopefully be a regular podcast again, but I'm sure I'll be back with an emergency podcast that explores this topic in the near future. Thank you. Bye-bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my Linktree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.